Welcome back to another episode of the Bar and the Brain podcast. My name is Tonee Earle, and I am joined by my co-host, Tay Fawumi, and we are here to break down another movie this time, After the Hunt. Now, this movie came out in August of 2025, so hopefully everybody's seen it, but if you haven't, you should know. Spoilers are coming, so spoiler alerts. This movie is about a college professor who finds herself at a personal and professional crossroad when a star student of hers levels an accusation against one of her colleagues, threatening to expose a dark secret from her own past. Dun dun dun.
Dun,
And
dun,
of
dun.
course, it's starring Julia Roberts as our lead character, Alma Imhoff, who is an assistant professor of philosophy at Yale. Of course, we have Andrew Garfield, who's one of my favorite actors, our very own Spider-Man, who plays Hank
Mhm.
Gibson, and he is also an assistant professor of philosophy at Yale. And then we have our girl, Ayo Edebiri, who plays Margaret, aka Maggie. We love her. If you would know her from The Bear, which is a great show, and other notable appearances she has. And then we have Michael Stuhlbarg, who played Frederick Mendelsohn, who is the husband of Julia Roberts' character, and Chloe Svingy, who plays Dr. Kim Sayers. She kind of has a little role, but she's in there.
Yeah, she's definitely in there.
Yes. So off the bat, Tay, what were your thoughts on this movie?
I'm not gonna lie, it was real slow for me. It was real slow. I somewhat was starting to lose interest when I first watched it,
Mm-hmm.
but then it picked up and it picked up well. And then
Mm-hmm.
once it picked up, it stayed up until the very end of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think, it really gave the audience a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And, it kind of really opens your eyes to how quickly and detrimental things can change in a blink of an eye.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. It is labeled a psychological thriller, so it's meant to make you think, and it is centered around the Me Too movement that
Yes.
occurred years earlier, and I think we're still kind of in, but I think has died down a bit. And Akeem and I, my husband and I, we watched this movie together. And at the end of the movie, I think we talked for like maybe an hour and a half, going back and forth on the cause of all the kind of drama of this movie. So let me get into spoilers real quick. This movie essentially, one, I'll say, I truly envision that this is how philosophers commune. Like, I really do think they come to somebody's house and they speak with big words and talk about
Yeah.
their theories and opinions. And I was like, okay, I guess this is cool or whatever. But essentially, there's a party at Julia Roberts' house. Everybody's there. Maggie and Hank leave. Something happens at Maggie's house. Hank does walk her to her house. Hank admits he would invite her up for a nightcap. And Maggie claims that she was assaulted by Hank. We don't ever actually learn the magnitude of the assault. Assault is assault up in here. Like we can acknowledge if you no means no. So whether it was a kiss or more, assault is assault. But we really don't know to what level the assault rose in the movie. And essentially, Maggie goes to tell Julia Roberts' character, who she is a TA for, and Julia Roberts acts in a way that I guess she kind of described herself like cold, different, I guess. I don't know. So Akeem and I were having a conversation about whose fault was it, and I say this not knowing the right words, right? And let me preface: my husband is very much a feminist, but we have conversations, and we were asking whose fault was it that what transpired. And Akeem's kind of version was, I'm going to teach my daughter not to do this and not to do that, not to do that. And my kind of point of view was, teach your son that no mean no. You know what I mean? Like, go ahead.
I think, the power differential. You are an assistant professor, so
That part.
the fault is yours.
That part.
Period. But the thing is, what really kind of got me thinking was before the nightcap and all that stuff even happened, Hank and Julia Roberts were talking about how he just caught her plagiarizing. So even before she was even, around him where a nightcap couldn't even happen, she was already on his radar where he felt like because she comes from a good family, very well off, she's very privileged, maybe she feels like she doesn't really belong there. And unfortunately, because she's probably not held accountable for things because of her privilege, she plagiarized. He caught
Yeah.
her. So, and instead of having her held accountable for academic dishonesty, he didn't say anything. So I tried to think to myself, I'm trying to think outside the box, and I'm like, okay, so he's already on game of what she got going on. So
Mm-hmm.
my thing is, if that was the case, why would you ever then set yourself up with asking for a nightcap from said student that you caught? And I was thinking, is this like like almost like a power differential? Like, oh yeah, I have your academic career in my
Mm.
hands, and you have to do some sexual favors to keep me to stay quiet. And if that's what he was feeling, now she's thinking, I got an angle because he knows I'm a cheater, but I'm going to, ruin his life by potentially creating this unsafe of him that's going to turn everybody's world upside down.
That's such a good angle. And I think it's interesting because I don't know that I believe that there was plagiarism, because when he brought it up to Alma's character, or to Julia Roberts' character, I couldn't read her response. I couldn't read, like, did she know? Is she just kind of feeding him, making him feel comfortable, making him feel like he has an ally? And so what stood out to me, though, was this was not his first time people saying stuff about him with a student.
Yes.
Apparently, he flirts with all of his TAs. Right? And then, fast forwarding towards the end, we saw what he did to Alma. Right? Like, we see.
And you know what? I never felt like he didn't do it, but I also felt like two things can exist at the same time.
Yeah.
I think she did cheat. I ain't gonna even lie. I think she did. And just by her visceral reactions to what Julia Roberts were saying, those things was hurting because I think she believes those things. So it's almost like you're holding a mirror to me by talking about my mediocrity and all these things. And I'm thinking, you can't see it, but you've seen through me. And that's why she smacked her teacher. And then she said, yeah, bitch, you don't know what you just done.
Yeah.
My thing is, if she really didn't feel like that, I don't think she would have had a visceral reaction like that.
True. It's interesting because I think this is what the writers were also trying to hint at, is this idea in the Me Too movement where we can't deny that certainly there had to be people who made accusations that may be true, maybe not true, but were some form of retaliation to something they may have experienced. And Hank did say, I confronted her about her dissertation, and now this is coming out, which doesn't mean he didn't do what she's alleging he did.
Exactly. And if he put it on record that she did this, at least it would, I would hope they wouldn't discredit her, but they can also recognize that maybe it was a plot. She's smart, she's educated, she definitely was intelligent. She had the gift of gab. So honestly, could she have done this? I think that's what the writers were trying to get us to do. They were trying to get us to, think outside the box, because honestly, I don't think she made it up. I think that maybe he did get aggressive with her and he did assault her because he wanted what he wanted. Because absolutely, like you said, at the end of the movie, we saw what almost transpired with Alma.
Yeah.
He did stop himself, but I honestly think he did, because I do think he does love her. Like, love her as a person. I think he didn't mean to disrespect her, but I think he's just wallowing in self-pity, wallowing in regret, and he was just making bad decision after bad decision at that point.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And I think the hardest part about this movie, and I think also being in the world of law where, like, I can recognize that if Andrew's character, Hank, wanted to fight this because he did not do it, he would probably have quite a bit of ammo to show this is a setup, particularly because she had plagiarized on her, if she did indeed plagiarize on her thing. However, I think the movie did a good job at not really talking about it, but making it obvious that even if he had gone to court to try to fight these allegations, you went in her house.
You did.
You went in her house late at night, drunk. That's
You're right. Like the boundaries as a professor, as an academic professor, you know, you cross them. And like, you know, even with Alma hosting these parties and stuff, I did notice that she wasn't getting drunk. She might had a little bit, but she was hosting. And I think having a safe place for your students to gather and to have these like-minded conversations is amazing because you know that you're safe. Because I can remember having those same experiences when I was in college. The person who was over top of all the housing for campus, like the housing director, he lived on the street that Washington College was on, and we had parties at his house all the time. Now, I definitely don't think he was providing us alcohol, but he had parties where for all the different holidays, he would have like Christmas cookies and we would see his family and, you know, be somewhere that's safe with adults and we would have like these really good conversations.
Yeah.
But like you said, this definitely seems like a philosophy folks vibe where, you know, we're just
Liberal
talking
arts.
about, liberal arts, like, which is near and dear to my heart because that's the type of school I went to. So I understood the vibe, but I think with you being the person who is representing the college, you should have had some more discernment and you didn't. So I
Exactly.
honestly think even if this was a lie, even if she did make it up, I still think he should have been reprimanded because this was
For
super
sure.
inappropriate.
For sure. For sure. And I think that there was something to be said about the fact that they were both up for tenure.
Yep.
And this idea that Alma, you know, we learn later in the movie that Alma falsely accused somebody who she loved of sexual assault because the relationship was inappropriate and that person decided to step away, find somebody else. And so she decides to falsely accuse him and later she retracts her story. But like his life essentially was ruined because of the accusation. And so I am always interested in thinking about Alma's motivation and wondering like, had she had not falsely accused somebody, would she have still sided with Maggie? Or would she had tried to support Hank and acknowledge that, you know, maybe Hank could not do something like that? Certainly she would not have thought that after the scene where Hank tries to essentially sexually assault her. So I do wonder what level of how that impacted how Alma reacted to what Maggie was saying, because it did feel like Alma didn't believe Maggie.
I think because, you know, it seems like Hank's been in her life for a long time. And, you know, even though he is a flirt, even though he's known for his behavior with students, nobody has mentioned this. So this is coming out of left field. But also, you know, I think with the stuff that was going on with Alma internally, with her own kind of like internal conflict, she didn't recognize, but she was sexually assaulted. She was a child. It doesn't matter if, you know, you for the sex, him being your dad's best friend, an adult, he should have told you this is inappropriate. You are underage and this cannot happen. But he did carry on a relationship with her. They were sexually active and that was a crime. So even though she feels all this guilt and all this stuff, she doesn't recognize that from everybody else's point of view, you are a victim. This did happen to you. Yeah, he's not like the big bad rapist in the sense of like he sought you out and like it was a violent act.
Yeah.
However, he took something from you. He took some type of innocence from you because at the end of the day, your frontal lobe was not fully developed yet and his was. And he chose to engage in a relationship with you as if you were an adult and you weren't.
Yeah. And I thought her husband had brought that up when she disclosed that relationship. And I just think it's so interesting because I feel like that's something we don't talk about enough. And, you know, I think back to my own childhood of being a teenager, being around men I had no business being around who didn't.
Absolutely.
And back then you don't, as a child, you don't think there's something wrong with this. You actually kind of think, oh, he's an older man, right? Like, that's
it's
cool.
not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. That's cool. But when you think back and you think about that age difference and how young you were and how impressionable and how easily,
influenced
you were, it's like, you nasty. These guys are nasty, bro.
They're predators.
They really are. And I feel like we don't talk about that side of it enough, because even though what Alma did was wrong in falsely accusing him, I understand that level of being intimate with somebody and then just being so frustrated that you can't have them anymore. And so you make up a lie that might hurt them, but that's kind of the goal. They hurt you, you hurt them.
Mm-hmm. But was it a lie though?
Well, no, she made up. Well, you know what? You're right. Because in a way, it wasn't a lie.
It wasn't.
She retracted her statement because I think she claimed that he raped her.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
raped her, right.
Yes, I think she claimed that he raped her. And so I think that part potentially, I guess if you're reading the statute, maybe it's still not a lie.
My lawyer, what would that be? What would his charge be? Because it sounds like rape to me.
I mean, statutorily, probably. And I think that's, again, going through law school, we learned that like rape was such a disregarded act in criminal code, right? Like it's a fairly new phenomenon of like women being raped by their husbands, right? And the idea of like consent. This is still like courts and legislatures are still really trying to define what all of that means. And I think there is a level of, especially for women, I would say, I do think there is a knowingness. While our frontal lobe may not be fully developed until we're 25, I do think there's a level of knowingness that while he should have been the adult and not even engaged in this relationship, if I know his heart and I know my definition of rape, it doesn't amount to that, right? I can still acknowledge it was probably some form of SA because he was how old he was, and I was impressionable and I was influenced by him. But if I know his heart and I know how I felt about him and I can acknowledge that I'm still adult enough to feel the way I feel, then, and I think it's always age, right? Like these child brides, heck no, you don't know nothing. What you feeling butterflies, you don't know anything you're talking about. But if we're getting 17 type age, I think we have a little bit more knowledge. I think we can articulate our feelings. And so I think it's tough. Right. I think it's very hard to define.
It is. And it makes me almost think about, I don't know if you ever seen the show The Teacher. It was on Hulu. It kind of talks about how I want to say he was a senior in high school. He became sexually involved with his teacher, and like how all that stuff transpired when they found out that they were involved, and like they were in like a full-blown relationship. Like he loved her, and honestly, she was just using him. Like she really was unhappy in her marriage, just unhappy with life, and she just used him as an escape. But he was actually in love with her. So when everything hit the fan and she had to go to prison because he was underage and you are the adult, you are his teacher, it's like his life like took a complete like tornado because he was like overwhelmed with guilt because he feels like he ruined her life and he loved her, and he just didn't know what to do with himself. And like at the end of the show, it showed how she reached out to him, I think, to have like a meeting or something. And he like went in on her. He was like, you were the adult. Like, because I think she tried to preface it like, oh, when you pursued me or when you tried to kiss me, I should have stopped you. And he was like, wait, are you trying to blame me? Because he was like, you initiated this too. Like it wasn't just me. And she was really trying to escape accountability, but he ate her up. He ate her up so bad because he was just like our relationship destroyed me. Like you going to jail and you not being able to find a job for a little bit and all those things destroyed me because I felt like it was my fault. But in actuality, it was your fault. Right. You were the adult. You were my teacher. You took advantage of me. Like, obviously, I was a willing participant at the time, but that's why when you are the adult in that situation, you are supposed to set the example and do the thing, especially if this is what you signed up for. Like, once and again, that power dynamic, that power differential.
And it's so interesting, which is why I actually do think we have to go back to like gender segregated schools. Because when I think back to high school, the boys were nasty. And the boys were flirting with our teachers to the point, there was rumors going around that certain teachers was dating some of the
down
boys.
To get down.
And it's like, at a certain point, it's like, no, I get it. That's nasty, and you should be grown enough to know. But the way that some of these grown men, but like not grown men, like showing up as grown men, but still 17, 18 years old, were approaching these teachers, I always felt like that should be punished.
It should.
You know what I mean? Like, a teacher can obviously say, stop, boy, stop, boy, stop. But no, you got to take that seriously. You got to take that seriously because he don't recognize.
And that's the thing. Like, when that happens, you putting a stop to it, you addressing it, you reporting it and doing all the things shows the young man or the young lady, because some of the girls were thirsty back then too.
That's true.
So it shows the person, like, how the real world works, because guess what? They're going to meet the right one, and you're going to have a sexual harassment case, and you're going to lose your job, lose out job opportunities, or get hit with a lawsuit, or God forbid, if you actually do something thinking it was okay and it wasn't, now you facing a felony or something. So I feel like you said, like, the different environments do the person disjustice by not acknowledging the issue. So like, I do hold the adults accountable, because at the end of the day, this is supposed to be your job, and this is supposed to be your role. However, when that does happen, it is your job to reach out to the guidance counselor, reach out to the principal. Hey, I am being catcalled by a couple of my students. I have tried to redirect. I have tried to let them know that it makes me uncomfortable, and nothing is working. So what are we going to do?
But you got people who are human and who may never have been catcalled at in a long time, right? Right. So it's like, when I tell you, it's just wrong. It's flat out wrong to have a relationship with a student, especially that power dynamic, as you pointed out. Like, when you recognize you have some sort of, authority over somebody, like, just cut it. And before we even get to age, although age is a big factor, just cut it out, because it doesn't work. That person can automatically think they should have to be involved with you because of your position in their life. So you just got to cut that out. But no, I absolutely agree. I think boy, girl, man, woman, you should absolutely cut that if there is a authority level in that relationship. And then I think, age should factor in. But I think with age, it's really hard, especially for these youngins today, when you see somebody like a Leonardo DiCaprio dating an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old. And it's like, how do we justify the difference between, 19 and 50 versus, 16 and 21, right? Like, obviously the law says it's wrong, but how do you really tell that child who is infatuated with somebody that this doesn't work?
Exactly. I mean, obviously we think it's disgusting, but it's legal. Like, it's like once a girl turns 18, it's like you are now up for grabs.
Isn't that weird?
It is weird, because my thing is, I be feeling like some people be counting down. When's your 18th birthday?
Call me when you turn 18. Ain't that what Drake said to Miley Cyrus? Something like that. Something like that. Yeah. It's like, what?
Oh,
isn't it weird?
Weirdo. Yes. Yeah, but my thing is, it's glorified. It's glorified in our media. It's normalized. It's not a big deal. And it's like, no, we should be calling it out. You're a creep. You want to, like, Leonardo DiCaprio, she is old enough to be your daughter. You're gross. Like,
and it's weird because
you can like him a little younger, like maybe somebody in their mid to late 30s. Like, maybe
half your age plus 7. Half your age plus 7.
Yeah.
That's kind of the customary age range. And I feel like You're right. It is glorified, but I feel like it's only glorified when it's an older man and a younger woman. Because when they see it flipped, it's Stella got her groove back. It's
Cougars.
cougar.
And they demonize those
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
They call them gross, call them predators, robbing the cradle, and all those things.
I do think they are. I mean, I think it's just as gross when it's a woman. Because again, he's old enough to be your son. Like,
or dating somebody who's like your son's age. Like, I'm trying to remember what situation was that. I cannot remember. I feel like it was like something going on where this woman was dating one of her son's friends, and I was just like, that's weird. It's weird, and it's the reason why some people don't even like their kids to go over other people's house, because of weirdos like you.
It's
plotting on the
weird.
babies, waiting for the babies to turn 18 so you can snatch them up. Like, you're weird.
It's very
Me and your
weird.
son was raised together. I'm like your son too.
I don't know. And I feel like more discussion should be had around this topic that really, because like, is there a diagnosis for men or women who desire to be with people who are like pubescent? Like, they want smooth, silky, skin and no armpit hair and very young. And like, what is that? Pedophilia?
It is. I mean, in so many words, it's not. I don't know if there is any diagnosis. I think a lot of that stuff might come from trauma. Like, depending on, they always say folks who were like assaulted sometimes become the person, what's the word? The assaulter, like, and it's a vicious cycle. So I think sometimes same thing with people who desire to be with younger people, or it can also be just a manifestation of them trying to move past those areas of their life that they're stuck on.
Yeah.
Like, when I think about how Freud sees the world, he always, prefaces where whatever stage of life that you're struggling, it's almost like wherever you are in your development, you're stuck there until you get past it. So for someone like Michael Jackson, who loved being around children, it was said that because he didn't really get a childhood, because he grew up in the industry, making music, making money, traveling the world, he didn't get to really enjoy being a kid. So instead of progressing like all the rest of us into adulthood and, having kids and getting married and, focusing on adult stuff, it seemed like he was kind of stuck in this world where he got to be like little Michael again and really focusing his energy and his time. And whenever he wasn't touring or making music, it seemed like he was feeding that little part of himself when he was a child and enjoying all these things and wanting to share with other children, because he's like, everybody deserves to experience this as a kid because he didn't.
Right.
So, with that kind of logic in the sense of Freud, it sounded like he got stuck in that the childhood, adolescent stage of life. He never really made it over to adult because he had like a lot of pain and trauma during that time, and he wasn't able to develop further.
That makes sense. I could recognize that. And so how does that relate to assault? Like, is it you've experienced assault or you didn't experience enough love? How would you typically see that?
It's so many different factors. I think, sometimes the person becomes the perpetrator because they're righting a wrong that was done to them in their head. Like, if I can't experience peace, or, this was done to me and nobody cared, nobody saved me, so I don't feel bad making somebody else feel the same thing I felt. I think I remember watching countless SVU episodes that was kind of like the main thing that was happening. It was like nobody came to save me. And like, sometimes they would have remorse, sometimes they wouldn't, because it was like, this was all I know. All I did was be traumatized, used, abused, and this is the only life I know. So unfortunately, I'm continuing with the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Kids who, you know, kind of grow up on the sex trait, they get older and like now they're not, you know, sought after. So sometimes they become the perpetrators that snatching the little kids and like taking them into the same thing that, you know, same thing that you unfortunately went through. Instead of advocating and trying to fight against it because this is all they've ever known, they just kind of fall in line.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so on the point of like relationships and being involved with people, I did want to point out Frederick and Alma's relationship because I found that very interesting. Like this man really loved this woman and he's a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
But it just seemed like, was he ignoring the fact that Alma don't really like him? Was he, like, I just felt like I don't think I would want to be therapized by somebody who can't see the issues in his own relationship.
I think he coddled her.
Mm,
I think he enabled a lot of her bad behavior because I think he knew she was in pain.
mm,
I think he probably saw the signs. I don't know if you noticed, but he checked in on her a lot. I
mm-hmm,
think, you know, he definitely tried to poke and probe, but I also feel like he respected her boundaries and he wasn't trying to push too hard.
mm-hmm.
Now, I think that's fed into the enabling behavior because you're recognizing things are happening and you're not doing anything about it and
Right,
you're her spouse.
right.
So I feel like, you know, he was teetering on the walking on eggshells where he was constantly letting her know, like, I'm noticing something. You seem like you're in pain. You need to, you know, talk to your doctors or you need to, you know, I'm noticing this and you seem off about that. He was definitely, it seemed like he was very aware and
Mm-hmm.
very in tune with his wife. However, being in tune is good, but in tune without no action leads nowhere, leads to
Right,
chaos,
right,
leads to the hospital.
right, right.
Because, you know, as you're peeping all of these things, you should have been like on her, especially because
Yeah.
I'm sure he knew that she was struggling with addiction. Like,
So,
you know, struggling with these, you know, her pain and
right,
seeking medication to help
right,
with the pain and
right,
recognizing if she don't have this medication, she's down bad, throwing up,
right.
having withdrawals.
Is that what that was? I couldn't really understand what was going on.
Yeah. I mean that's how I took it. Obviously
Mm-hmm.
they didn't go too deep, but I mean it just kind of highlighted all things that was addiction related. Like I mean she stole her best friend's script pad.
And I don't even think that was her best friend, to be honest. I think that was her coworker who she leaned on, who she began to lean on because she could no longer lean on Hank. Like,
Mm.
Dr. K was invited to different things, but we didn't really even hear much from her until that time they decided to go out. And then she decided to tell all of Maggie's information, which I didn't really get that one.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, stealing the script. She didn't even steal his patch. I think she stole like she stole like a few pages of the script pad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But stealing that, I was just like, okay, she's definitely got a problem. But she was taking medication already. She had medication.
But I don't know if you peeped, she was going through it so quick. So the reason why she got the script pad was because she was trying to get a new prescription because she was out of refills. So she got desperate and she took the script pad and tried to write her own script. I don't know why she thought she was going to get away with that. But I mean, that's kind of like where desperation leads you.
Yeah.
Instead of being honest and talking to your provider, seeing if they can prescribe you something else that might not be as addictive, but will take away your pain.
Right.
You chose to go off the deep end.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting that her only punishment was that tenure was on. Like,
They said on hold. I thought they took it away. I thought they said that she wasn't able to get
they
it
said off
at
the
all.
table for now.
Oh, okay.
Like, I was
Yeah.
just like, that's it.
That's it. She ain't locked up because that's a crime, ain't it? That's a felony.
And Dr. K didn't want to press charges. And I'm like, you are supposed to be a elite institution, and you're going to allow your professors to steal a script and get controlled substances illegally. And the worst thing that happens to them is tenure is on hold for, maybe it is forever, but you're giving her hope by saying for now. I mean, what? That's weird.
That's a terminable offense.
Think so.
That's a terminable offense.
I
think
would
anywhere
think
else.
so.
Like, I think anywhere else it would be, but
If
that
she was
school
black,
definitely. Don't get us started. Well, if she was black, the police would have met her at the door.
the mother flipping dough.
At the door.
And
that's, Taylor?
Bro.
Tay Fawumi, please put your hands behind your back.
And that's why there was something that she said in the beginning where it was this white boy basically trying to explain his plight as a cis white male. And he was basically saying that women edge out an equally qualified man just because they're a woman. And I think they were playing on DEI and this increase in women in the workspace. And, I thought Alma and Maggie had some really good responses to that. But I do think it's interesting, especially as we're coming off this, tour of Erica Kirk talking about protections for white male men. I did think that was really interesting because I think I've always
they're
thought
the most protected.
Oh my God, the most protected.
They're like
the most
hello?
protected. The most protected. And I really do think it's interesting that there are a group of men, white men in particular, who probably have the greatest advantage in this world, who really are so mediocre that instead of trying at something, you have to blame women and maybe even black women for having to work twice as hard to get not even as close to the hem of where they could get, and be upset that they actually did it. Right? Like that we can be in these spaces and it's earned. Right? And it's earned, and you can't compete with that. So now you have to fear us, and you have to be this docile creature that's oppressed. And I felt like this movie kind of just glanced over that just a little bit. But I was like, no, that's a big thing to talk about.
It is. Like, it was almost like, I remember Alma, her character, saying something like, if you go through with this, talking to Maggie, like the world is ran by white men, and you're going to need these white men to give you a job and to open these doors for you. And yeah, even if he did do it, they're going to be terrified to hire you because they recognize what you are capable of.
Yep.
And they don't want to be next. And I was like, damn.
And I thought it was interesting because obviously we know Maggie's parents are super wealthy. They pretty much donated half the campus. And so we know they're super wealthy people. And it's interesting that Alma is saying this to Maggie, because I'm wondering, are you saying this to her because she's a black woman? Because I feel like if she was a white woman, you would be like, girl, daddy's money gonna take you far. Go ahead and make these claims. Like there would be really no issue, because money is going to lead you, because as it always does, as it always has. So right. I really thought her saying that was really, really interesting, especially knowing that Maggie does come from money. And that's probably the only reason why the school took it so seriously, was because who her parents were.
Daddy Warbucks was like, somebody hurt my baby. You better do something.
Yes. I feel like Ayo played her character so well, because I think she was supposed to give off this illusion that maybe she wasn't telling the truth. And so it was hard for me to still not root for her, because I'm like, you're a black woman in a heavily white space. I don't think it would hurt. I don't think it would hurt to get your lick back at these institutions and these people. But I don't know. I thought the movie just did a really good job of creating a character that I didn't think she was very believable, but we're in a world where you believe women, right?
Yeah.
And
it was an ambiguity to her.
Yeah.
And I think, what made me really look at her sideways is when she was in Alma's bathroom during the party looking through her stuff.
Well,
Like,
she
you're
was looking for toilet
weird.
paper. She was looking for. I'll give her that. She was looking for toilet paper because there was no toilet paper. So you naturally just like, let me not go out there and bother people for toilet paper. And I think potentially that might be a little bit embarrassing to go out there and say, hey, you're out of toilet paper. So she was looking for toilet paper. Now I will agree, it's a bit weird to see an envelope taped under the sink and think, let me pull this down and read it.
Read it and take it.
And take stuff.
You're weird. So, I mean, to me, I was just like, she rubbed me wrong from the beginning. I just think, her character kind of came off as disingenuous. She tried to act like she was the smartest person in the room a lot of the time. And and the thing is, I don't know if that was coming from her feeling like a fraud, like, amongst all these other people who maybe have all these
Yeah.
high academia backgrounds and things like that. And she kind of knows like, she's here because daddy wants her to be. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it was coming from a space like that, because we also recognize that based on our environment, we can sometimes mask and present the best way we think we're going to be received in different areas. So I don't know if it was coming from a place of that. But like you said, like, it started off innocent looking for toilet paper, but then it became sinister when you went through your professor's things, took something out, and then took it with you like you're a thief.
Right.
So,
And I think
like,
that the timing of everything, you learn that your professor lied about, well, not lied, but y'all know what I mean. You learn that you're falsified, an allegation of, SA, and the next day you talking about homeboy did me dirty.
yeah, a series of unfortunate events.
And she keeps trying to say things like, well, I would think you would understand because of what you went through and this, that, and the third. And that kind of tells me like, and there were hints that like Maggie wanted to be like Alma. Like Maggie was trying to be, mini Alma. And so I'm thinking maybe she's not telling the truth. And this movie really does kind of pull at my desire to believe women.
Me too.
Right. But also seek justice
Following
and
the
truth.
fact.
Right. Following the fact. Seeking justice and truth, because it's like we also have evidence and we have precedents of women lying to get ahead and ruining men's lives. And so it would be illogical to just blanketly trust women. But when the facts are there, right, without pure hardcore evidence, when there's enough evidence leading up to this potentially happening, I say believe women. But again, because we have this full movie and we see that one professor should have never went in her house, but he did. He did. And then he got aggressive with Alma. And honestly, those two things were enough for me to be like, I believe.
Yeah. Agree.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like it could be two things true at the same time. I think she cheated, and I think she was trying to get some get back, but maybe she bit off more than she can chew, and she was like, "Oh, he's crazy for real.
Yeah.
Well, he's really going to hurt me." I think maybe her plan was to maybe blackmail him, maybe get on camera that he is, involved with me, and then something bad happened. But
That's true.
I think she felt like her position was in danger.
Yeah. I think so too.
You caught me plagiarizing, and you have my academic career in your hands, and you can ruin me. My parents will be like, I could be disowned by my parents. They can write me off or cut me off. And you have all these things that can happen if you report me. So I feel like I gotta do something about it.
Right. I could see that too, and I could definitely very well agree with that. I just think I thought the movie was pretty good. I can agree it was a bit slow.
It was a bit slow. But when it turned up, it was good from there. Like,
Yeah.
once it took off, it was just a whole bunch of stuff. I was thinking to myself, she wasn't going home. She at this little apartment to work because she can't be at home with her husband. And like,
She hated
her
that
husband,
man.
I don't think she hated him. I just think, I think she wished he would challenge her more. I think she when she was talking to Hank, I felt like she felt like Hank was almost like her equal. Like they can have these really intense, like, you know, thought-provoking conversations, and he was like on her level in that sense. But I think with her husband, because he is a therapist, I will admit I do this too. You know, when you are in a relationship with someone who's very in tune with certain things, she probably just couldn't stand the fact that he would just read her every time and just, you know, say what is actually going on, want to say what's actually going on, and it's things that she's running away from, things that she doesn't like. She was trying to run away from being vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she only can be vulnerable with her husband because it seemed like he knew her inside and out.
I feel like there was a theme of her not opening up, because even when her and Dr. K had that scene in the bar, I think there was this theme of like her not really expressing herself and not really opening up, and so she didn't really have a safe space to go and tell all of her issues to, because there was a lot of things she didn't tell Frederick. Like she knew about the essay and she didn't tell him, and he was like, "Did you read this? Did you hear this?" And so I don't know. I felt like when Frederick said, "I'm making a cassoulet, you coming for dinner?" and she decided to go to the bar with Hank, who couldn't even pay for their drinks, that told me you don't like this man. Because your man at home cooking for you, and you decide to go to a bar with this guy who can't even afford drinks. I don't know. I just thought it was weird.
But was this after the essay? This was after the allegation, right?
No, it was.
Or this before?
It was before she learned, because when she gets back from the bar, that's when Maggie's character is sitting over there soaking wet in the corner. And I'm like, why is she?
She was a weirdo to me. And this was like, she was just giving weird vibes.
She was giving weird. I really couldn't understand her character, but I do feel like kind of pointed it out that like she just wants to be interesting, and so she's dating somebody who makes her interesting, and she's doing all these things, she's being all these places, and she went through with the article because that's going to continue to keep her interesting. And kind of I think Alma read her properly.
She did. Read her for filth.
Yeah I think so. I thought the movie was good. I thought there was a lot of good conversation to come from it, and I just wish we could increase the conversations we have with our young men of the world, to know what consent means, to know what no means no, to know not to get the same way we train our daughters not to put yourselves in sticky situations. I wish we could have those same conversations with our young men, to not put yourself in sticky situations. Don't be in nobody house asking for a nightcap and you are their superior. It don't work.
Ever. It never leads to anywhere positive. It's never going to be a positive outcome in those situations.
Well, thank you, Taylor, for joining me on this episode of the Bar in the Brain podcast. It's always a good and fun conversation with you. And to our listeners, be sure to come back and listen to our next episode as we continue to dive into media and film, breaking down our understandings and our reactions to the things that we see. So see you next time on the Bar and the Brain.
Bye.
Bye.